As always, I start with just a little brief prayer of gratitude. So we'll do that first. Thank you to the source of creation, Ma, the birther of all the universes, for being the very life of this live webinar. Thank you to the Inside Tribe. Thank you to the vast and infinite diversity of life, of expressions of divine being, particularly those which have the strength and capability and wisdom and perspective to support our healing and to support the most effective use of our time tonight. Thank you to everyone's ancestors. Thank you to everyone's collective, which we'll talk more about tonight. Thank you to the divine in each of us for blessing tonight's session with the ability to work collectively and effectively to support everyone's ability to master the energy healing process for themselves, to allow us to zero in like a laser on the source of people's concerns, of everyone's concerns, all of your concerns, and to address those seeds in the very highest and best possible way with economy and compassion and efficiency, making everyone self-sufficient and self-sustaining. Thank you for being with me. All right. I'm going to close my window that tells who's here. And open this window that shows me so I know what I look like. Not that I need to. All right. So tonight's webinar is about how to deal with long-term chronic concerns, illnesses, also situations. I'm just feeling into the group for a minute. I would like tonight's webinar to be primarily just one healing after another. It would be nice because we can all use all the healing we can get. But before I get started, I just wanted to give a brief overview for all the new people of what is energy work and energy healing and how we're going to be approaching it tonight and some of my structure so you can see what it looks like. Focusing attention is focusing divine being. Our attention is that tool of our own consciousness. It is the tool of consciousness itself that goes and lands on something, and as it does so, it fills that upon which it lands with its own nature, which is completeness, totality, wholeness. So when we're talking about healing, we're talking about something that's incomplete or painful or unpleasant or difficult or whatever, then it means that there's something that's not expressing its full value. It's not expressing its full potential. So the value of bringing awareness is that awareness naturally brings with it the resolution or the completion. So the idea of energy healing is to learn how to intelligently direct attention in order to produce specific effects, and how to bring that completion as quickly and economically as possible, gracefully, comfortably. Also, one of the main principles that we're working on is that we range, what we're looking at, the structure is a range of manifestation from that which is not manifest, the source of creation, all the way through to the densest level of creation, or at least to our human level of creation. We'll be talking about rocks tonight too. They seem a little denser, right? They seem a little denser than our bodies. Our bodies are soft and supple and have water in them. All right, feeling into the group now. Because what I want to do is I just want to give you the healings that you need. We want to express the healing work is constantly happening. Constantly evolution is occurring. But when awareness goes into the area where the healing work is taking place, then awareness enhances and supports that healing process. So my job is to be the mirror of the healing work that's being done. And so the first thing that I'm seeing is it appears that there is a kind of an opening. Okay, I talked about how the body ranges from dense to subtle. And in that range, there are all kinds of different organs. Some of the physical organs are physical, but there are subtle organs as well. Everyone's heard of chakras, meridians, and this cord of light that runs from the crown of the head down through the body into Mother Earth, and causal body organs and all kinds of interesting organs. In the cord of light, in the area between the second and fourth chakra. So we're around where the third chakra is, but also up, also stretching past that. There is energy, the awareness is moving into that area, looking at what appears to be blockage. Nervous system, good. I'm looking at organs and chakras in all different levels. But what I'm seeing is what I'm seeing is a form of orderliness, which is designed to keep life comfortable, that when we're facing chaos, and this kind of starts to interface into tonight's topic anyway, when we're facing a chaotic situation, it feels out of control. The potential for evolution is greater when a situation is not super orderly, because it's in those moments that we face the unknown that we are expanding our awareness into areas we have never been before. And when awareness expands into the unknown, then the potential for growth is maximum. However, if the chaos, if the flow is too much, there's not enough orderliness, or there isn't enough compassion to kind of keep it moving in a safe way, then the situation can backfire and become, rather than more evolutionary, can just become a big mess. So there are certain cultural parameters or guidelines which we all tend to agree upon and follow. Mostly, most people follow most of them in order for life to be comfortable and orderly enough that when things start to move into that chaos area, that we can still maintain our own comfort level and we can still maintain the evolutionary flow. What I'm seeing is the orderliness that's there, that sort of rigid and holdingness is a little bit too much for tonight, and that we need a little more freedom to move around. Awareness needs a little more freedom to move around. A lot of times people hold fear also. In the third chakra area, it's a very common place, and also the pancreas is a very common place to hold fear. So we're just looking into that area, and it's just, as awareness goes in, it softens that, it softens, and it helps open up. And of course, everyone knows also that the third chakra area is where we experience and express power, where being experiences and expresses power. So it means an awakening or an expansion of personal power for the sake of evolution and healing. And what I see moving into that area as the social constructs like belief systems and kind of like rules like dogma, rules and regulations, moves out, that the energy in that area is now free to take on a more orderly structure of its own design. Because ultimately, who is doing the healing in this session is the source of creation, is healing itself. Ultimately, what we're doing here is we are putting ourselves in the position of accepting that everything is an expression of the source of creation. Everything, 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 including every little detail of who and what you are, is an expression of divine being. That's why I said at the beginning that you're adorable. Because it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to have a complete connection. And that's the reason for clearing this area, this third chakra area, is to allow the flow that comes through the cord of light. It comes both in through the crown. We get information from our own divine nature, our own source of creation, the source of creation, and from the lower levels of the physiology, which is where the blockage was affecting, we get all that nice earth energy, and a lot of cosmic information also comes sort of up through the body. And the reason is that the cord of light connects all the way to the center of the earth, and the center of the earth has her own cords and connections that go to the sun and the moon and the different planets, but also to the center of the galaxy and to the center sun of creation and so forth. So it's actually our connection to the earth is one of our main connections to the cosmic locations where information is held that is important for the healing process. And it's also important for the knowledge attaining process. And that actually ties into one of the questions tonight, which was, I have mentioned in the past about a cosmic location where templates are, where the templates can be found, where templates reside, that are structures like, they are fundamental to blueprints that the body can use to build itself in specific ways. I think I'm just going to refer back to that question just to make sure that I answer it clearly. Right, you said that there were templates for perfect health and eternal youth. What are the best ways for us to access and bring them into our lives? Perfect health and eternal youth. So what I'm doing is moving awareness through my own being. And as I'm looking into this location of the templates for those who weren't in on that webinar, just letting you know that at subtle levels of the physiology, our bodies, our manifested self, our subtle manifested self, is very independent of space-time. And so it's possible to access information that existed far in the past or far in the future. And the templates are what the Akashic record looks like at the beginning of creation, before it becomes very specified. So in that early state, when the whole universe or the multiverse was awaiting its expansion, it started to expand. That which we think of now as the record of everything that happened and will happen existed in a kind of a simple state, like stem cells. You know, they can become anything. And so these templates are very simple forms which have potential to take lots of different shapes. But there are, I'm getting more information that I didn't have before. Thanks for asking the question. There are points where the templates begin to specify. So in the beginning, they all look the same, like really the same. Like a fruit, like a strawberry or something with lots of little seeds on the outside, and each seed looks pretty close like the rest of them, But eventually, if you took each little seed and planted them, each plant would come out like a little different. So I'm looking to the point where the specification begins. And when I say looking, it means I am offering the question into the source of divine being to reveal and show, can it reveal and show, where is that spot where the most efficient use of our time tonight to look at the templates for eternal youth and perfect health. And what I'm seeing is very interesting, that the point where these templates start to kind of specify, and so we can really, work with them as a in a specific area, they already are extremely universal. Because remember, when the Big Bang banged, right, it starts out as like one chakra. It just starts out as one thing, and then it becomes more diversified, more diversified, more diversified. So back then, where they are in that simple state, but they're starting to take a shape, what's happened as they've diversified is they have embedded themselves in many, many locations in creation, in many little spots in creation. So all of us, all of you, all of us together, we can find the energy frequency or the signature, the structure of the template of eternal youth, for example, in our own youth. Now, when people are little and they're enjoying really good health and youth, there usually isn't a conscious awareness of, oh, hey, I'm really healthy, right? Because when we're little and very youthful, we're just kind of running around doing the thing and dealing with our own challenges at that time. I was talking to my son this morning about how the challenges of an infant are the challenges of life and death. First, the child has to learn to breathe. I mean, it's not like learning to breathe is so hard, but if you don't, you die. Then they have to learn to eat. And if you don't, you die, and so forth. So the stakes are really high when you're little. But the lessons are pretty easy. As we get older, the lessons get more challenging, but the stakes get lower. So at least hopefully. But the point about the eternal youth is what we have to define, like I'm just reframing the question a little bit, is what we really want is not to have to go back and deal with the challenges of youth, but rather to enjoy physically abundant energy, strength, healthful functioning of all the systems in the body, all the organs in the body. That's what we want. So it's very specified. It's becoming more isolated down. And so I have to look where it is in the evolution of the templates that we can isolate down into just that one piece. What I'm seeing is that there is a relationship between the condition of being very physically healthy and youthful and dealing with certain kinds of lessons or challenges. And what's happened is in our physiologies, there's a kind of a binding that's taken place where we connect and associate the lessons that we learned in youth with that feeling of health and the feeling of youth and everything working, everything functioning perfectly. And it has to separate a little bit, because what we need to do is we need to be able to move forward from present moment in all of life lessons without. So this separation, this binding, I'm looking for where is the binding. It's in unconscious level of the mind. It's also in, I'm looking physically in the body. I'm looking physically if there's any kind of binding, like chemical bonds. Right. And I'm also seeing, again, fear. The fear that comes with the idea that if I'm doing great, there will be greater demands upon me. And so that is where, because it's the greater demands become the chaos. And at that point, we have to talk a little bit about, just changing position, a little closer to you. That last webinar, I talked about the light of divine being flows. There are four things. The light of divine being flows, and together, this gives rise to evolution. But there must be orderliness, because without that, the flow is chaos. And the orderliness needs to be kind of cultivated by or modified through the very highest, softest emotional structures, such as love and compassion and empathy. Because the orderliness in that flow is just going to create kind of a fascist state. And also the orderliness blocks the evolutionary process, because the thing about order is it means that you're dealing with something that you're completely familiar with, and it's not challenging you in any way. But we need the challenge to be a challenge which is a comfortable challenge. So as I'm looking at this, what I want to say is that the flow and the light of being stands behind everything, and it is total and all-encompassing. But the flow is not only a kind of a force like nature, like gravity, but it's also emotion. This is also emotion, and it's also water in the body. So what we get is a relationship between light of being and liquid that moves. And then orderliness comes down more to minerals. These are the minerals in the body. I have this other really beautiful one. Beautiful minerals. And they're orderly. So what happened when we did the healing for the third chakra was the intelligent, orderly structure of crystalline energy, or this very fine structures of orderliness that reside in your manifested form, from subtle to gross, or abstract to concrete, down at this very deep level. I'm now calling spirit body. I changed it because it's become more information has been made clear to me, where you are the laws of nature. You are the structures of orderliness in creation. So these orderly structures are responsible for the integration of the template, for clearing out the fear, which is connected to the idea, if I have more strength and I have more resources, then more demands will be upon me, and I can't deal with that because I'm worried that the chaos will be overwhelming. So we need to get these values in order. That means the relationship between the water and the minerals of the body. That's why I said I'm looking in at the physical body as well, if anything's stuck in that area. How the body deals with and handles the mineralogical level of its own nature. They say if you reduce a human, you get 2 pounds of chemicals and water. So, so basically at a kind of atomic and molecular level, it's a simple union. There's a unity, a leveling of the playing field between the water that flows, which is made of atoms, and the minerals that nourish the water. As the water flows, it crushes down, or even in the digestive system, it crushes down the minerals and to finer, finer, finer portions. And in so doing, the fine portions of minerals nurture the water. They feed the water. So everybody's water in their body has its own flavor based upon the minerals that you've got going on and how they're crushing down, how alive the water is, how alive the water in the body is. Ah, I see. So see, it's all new information for me too. I'm just getting it as I'm giving it. And so the water, the life in the water, oh, so interesting, is it interacts with the minerals in specific ways. When the water is more dead, like, okay, think of the difference between a river that meanders like this and a man-made canal that's straight. In a meandering river, what you get are areas where the water moves faster. It'll move faster around the bends. And when it does that, if there's a rock in the river, the water moves across the rock and it starts to break it, and it bumps it against the other rocks, and they start to break down into little chunks, into finer, finer, finer chunks. So, and also research has shown that the water that moves faster has a higher electromagnetic level. I was just watching something about some famous scientists of the past century looking into that. If the water is not allowed to curve and it's put into straight, then rivers will tend to, it'll be like a canal. They tend to not be very lively. The animals, the fish, and the plants in these more straightened out rivers, like man-made, they're not as healthy. So the water needs to curve. And we know that the curving of the waters is a reflection of that flow nature, and also a kind of a reflection of the chaotic element too. It's bringing in the orderliness and trying to make it straight that actually kills and makes the water not so lively. So the thing about youth is the liveliness of the water. Okay, so we also know that one of the differences between a young physiology and old physiology is telomeres. Telomeres are the little end caps on the ends of the DNA molecules, and each time a cell divides, the telomere, like if you imagine this is the DNA and this end bit is the telomere. Every time the cell divides, a little piece of the end comes off. So if you think of a string, like if you make a rope and you twist and twist and twist the strings, and then you put a little binding on the ends, it helps the twisted string so it doesn't untwist itself. And DNA is like that in healthy young physiologies, that the end caps are nice and big and thick and healthy, and so the cells can divide, and they don't, the DNA doesn't like permanently unravel or lose any significant information or so forth. So part of this work is the relationship between the information that the template provides and the effect on the telomeres and the physiology. We need to look to the causal level of physiology, which is actually here. And I'm not going into big explanation for those of you who've been with me for so long, and I lined them up slightly differently, but I don't want to waste time. We want to be doing the healing work. So I will talk about that later if there's time. Causal body produces energies which rebuild tissues. So tonight, we rebuild the telomeres at the ends of everyone's DNA strands. Why not? The idea that the telomeres disappear with the cell division. I'm looking at what's happening energetically in everybody's physiology. And what I'm getting is we can work through time. This is a very sophisticated thing that the God presence is being asked to do, that the higher self, the big self, is being asked to do. But it can be done. A sufficient amount of love is required to move through these physiologies back to their youth, back to the original times of the cell divisions, and rebuild the telomeres from the early cell divisions. Rebuild them from the beginning. People whose telomeres are in better shape throughout the course of their lives have healthier cells. Each time they divide, they're healthier. And what I'm seeing is very interesting. I'm seeing a material substance being produced by... The material substance is being provided as a download for everyone. It is a formula, and it's definitely a goldeny colored material. And I'm asking if it's golden soma, which is a goldeny material I was already aware of. And I'm getting that it is that, but it is also modified. It's a modified form that has within it information from the stars. And of course, we know the stars bring us our minerals. It's very nice how the stars are offering from the stars into the physiology. That's why we had to clear that bit in the third chakra, right? So you could get all that information coming in, that cosmic information. Detailed information of the flavors and the energetic signature of this medicine that is produced by your body. It's produced from pure being as it starts to manifest into the physical body. It starts at the very deepest level, the celestial level. And that celestial level of physiology looks like a field because it's very close to the field of pure being, right? So at the dense material level, we look more like shape and form. And as we look at the finer, more abstract levels of the physiology, they look more and more like a field. So that first field, it sits quiet, but it can resonate with very specific energy frequencies that create a foundation for the production of specific things like medicines, like energy medicines that you can create. So the resonation is first identified. This is where we're bringing in that deep winter energy. Oh, the long nights, right? The long nights and the more time with the stars. When the earth rolls over and it faces out into that big expanse of cosmic wisdom and cosmic expression, we have more time with their light shining upon us. Even if we're in our house, it's still their energy is right there. And along with that resonation, that celestial, it's the celestial body is resonating with a kind of a cosmic frequency, because the soma, that the very ancient light medicine that has been present and our bodies have been somewhat familiar with over time, is getting that little modification. Why? Because there's certain things that live a long time. There's certain things that when they restructure themselves in the context of immortality. They're definitely celestial structures that are like that. Even small celestial structures that are like that. There is a lot of being in the universe that has not yet been identified by modern science with our current state of technology. but the information for keeping the telomeres in their finest state, in their wholeness, comes from those structures of creation that every time they recreate themselves a little more perfectly aligned with expression of divinity. So the resonation of cosmic information, and then the laws of nature, responsible, you are the laws of nature. Thank you. I'm getting that nice and clear now. So this is where we talk about two things. One is, why did Dorothy switch, for those of you who've been with me for a while, why did Dorothy switch the causal body, which was here, with the spirit body, which was here? Why? Why? The reason is that it was at one point, it just dawned since the last webinar, like a kind of a no-brainer, that the causal body is more highly structured, it's more highly defined. The causal body is more highly defined. It has, I'm putting it here. And for those who are new, I divide this continuum from unmanifest to manifest into 8 layers, because it's easy then to go in and focus attention really concisely. And that's what we need to do to effectively promote an energy healing effect in the body. I think I said effect twice, but I know you get what I mean. So the deal is, the causal body is comprised in layers, like an inner layer and then another and another, like multiple spheres. And it also has organs in it. Organs that can be defined, can be identified, that do specific things like make light medicine, or allow you to know anything, or allow you to manifest anything, or various kinds of, or many kinds, and even can produce its own custom organs. However, the spirit body is a much more abstract animal. It's a much more abstract level of self. The spirit body has a fractaline structure or nature. It has a fractaline look to it. And it also morphs. It can morph quite a bit more than the causal body tends to remain its shape. So that's why. And then the other thing was that always I was finding the story of the soul at this level, the spirit body. But then it became evident that that's also where we interface with the laws of nature, particularly at the more superficial level of the spirit body, where we're kind of going into the causal body. That's where our being interacts with all the laws of nature. So it kind of goes to follow that at the finer levels of the spirit body, you are the laws of nature, because as we experience ourself at finer, deeper levels of creation, we expand, being expands, and begins to encompass or embrace all living things. Because when you get down to the field of pure being, there's only one being. It looks like there's separate ones, but really it's just one being. So there are places where you are united with all the laws of nature. And the laws of nature are able to maintain their integrity and their specificity. But at the same time, there's a kind of underlying wholeness that this is where we really work with and manipulate, you can say. This is what energy healing is about, right? It's getting the awareness into the fine level and then figure out, how do I address my own nature at a fine level in order to produce a specific effect. So when we're talking about the spirit body, and you are the laws of nature, and at that level also, you are all the beings, all the specified beings in creation. Is a big collective. It's a big collective there. So I refer to this as the inside tribe, because all the tribes are finding their union, right? All the tribes that were separate, all the kingdoms of creation that were separate and were functioning in a more chaotic or disorderly manner because they weren't aware of each other and they weren't working together harmoniously, are coming together. It's represented symbolically as the unification of tribes in the Osseti camp in North Dakota, the No Dapple camp. All the tribes have come together, but inside, all the tribes have literally come together. They're unified in you. All the different rankings of different beings of all different types and varieties are unified in you. This is your inside tribe. And there are locations that are more supportive of accessing and working with that level of self than others. And one of the blessings that has been born of the Osseti camp is that a very beautifully defined inner space has been created for working together, communicating effortlessly with the inside tribe. So the inside tribe includes yourself at all times in creations. It includes back in the good old days when you were a rock. Or even in the even gooder older days when we were just the soup of creation coming out to become planets and stars and so forth. And it includes the future when you are a galaxy or all forms and varieties of light beings that become as the Big Bang starts one, and this is the physical expression part we're talking about here. It starts and then it expands and it becomes multiple, multiple, multiple. But on the other end of the spectrum, it comes back together again. And so we start out as one great, huge, massive being of creation, the mother of the whole creation. We've all experienced ourselves as the mother of creation because we all are that. Like, think of the mother creation as like a big star, and each one, I've given this analogy before, metaphor, each one is like a point coming off of that star. So each physiology is an antenna looking at the source of creation, looking at itself. So the mother creation has created herself multiple millions of antennas, billions and billions and trillions of antennas, each looking from a slightly different perspective at its own self. So the mother of creation seeing her own self from all the perspectives at the same time. It's a big picture. It's a big picture. I'm just letting that sink in a little bit because it is on the lap of mother that basically any healing can be performed, including for long-term chronic illnesses, which is actually the topic of tonight's session, and I want to make sure that we do cover that. So I'm looking at a couple of the questions. Oh, yes. So very nice question here. Actually, this question is from someone in Europe, and I know we're going to have the Europeans with us tomorrow. Wait, let me just see. Sometimes Europeans come in at night too. No. Okay, the person who asked that question will be here tomorrow, so we won't do that one tonight. But I do, since we're talking, I do want to talk about past lives, because a lot of the long-term chronic illnesses, or if a person, for example, is born with an illness, then they carry it through their whole life. And it means that it's something that they accrued on the longer course or the longer journey of the soul. So here at the spirit level, where the story of the soul unfurls and shows itself. I'm glad we're working with this level tonight, you guys, because there's a lot of information that hasn't come out previously about this spirit level, the physiology that I've been wanting to share. Thanks. Past incarnations, past existences, past modes of existing. there's a long field of virtual. The past kind of spreads out, just like the future kind of spreads out, and the only really isolated moment of existence is the present moment. So it means that we have a choice in the present moment to align ourselves with a future in which we would be very much more fulfilled and be free of, say, a chronic illness. We also have the ability to realign ourselves with experiences in the past. It can make sense if the soul has been through a trauma, that the trauma can carry from one physiology to another. One physiology to another. But the only thing carried in the present physiology is the trauma itself and any memory patterns. It's coming in. We've got a question coming in. Oh, that's okay. Oh, yeah, I know what that is. Okay. So what's happening, everybody, is that it's revealing layers and layers of past traumas, all various types and varieties, all various. Many of us have worked very hard to come to the point that we are currently experiencing. And everybody deserves to be comfortable and happy, and everybody deserves to be treated with dignity, and everybody deserves to be able to evolve in their own, to their full potential, with their own highest and best potential. And what's happened is many times in the past, because we know that the chaotic element gives rise to evolution when you get out of your comfort zone a little bit. So what's happened is, on so many occasions, individuals would choose in the spirit world before coming into the physical body to have more of the chaotic element present. Like not balanced. If these four values that I talked about earlier aren't balanced enough, you get too much of the chaos going on, or too much of the flow and the light of being going, and it becomes chaotic. Then instead of just evolving forward, it's almost like backwards evolution occurs. In people's enthusiasm to take on a lot in this lifetime or in a previous incarnation. And because of certain laws of nature on Earth, for some reason, the laws of nature on Earth have allowed for people to take on a lot and to kind of experiment and stretch themselves and see, well, how much can I bear? How much can I take? How much karma can I pay off at once? The laws of nature of Earth have allowed that, and the Earth has been kind of embraced in a kind of a little cocoon in a way that allowed for this separation, this experience of separateness to take place in people's awareness. It is the experience of separation from one's own divinity that gives rise to a feeling of not being worthy of comfort on the path. The question I'm asking and pouring into the field of pure being is, if a person gets caught in a lot of chaos and entropy, or in a lot of, like intense flow without enough orderliness and love to keep everything in check, are they really evolving faster, really? And the answer comes back that it was an unknown. Wow, that's a very interesting answer. What Mother of Creation is saying is, it's an experiment, that Earth is a field of experimentation, and there's been a certain amount of testing the waters to see where the parameters and boundaries are best laid down, and how much people should be protected from themselves, basically. And two things are happening. One is that there's a better understanding now. There's a big awakening taking place on Earth, and people are starting to come into a place of feeling a closer connection to their own divine nature, which is essential and is very helpful to be able to structure at those finer levels of the body the information needed to be able to really self-love, self-protect, self-acknowledge, self-accept. These are fundamentals. These are essentially laws of nature, and there are members of your inside tribe that are just self-love, that are just self-acceptance, that are pure truth, that are pure compassion, pure empathy. These are what you are made of. So collectively, we talked a little bit about the future self has integrated these qualities better. What we want is a ratio between the flowing evolution energy and the orderly, loving order energy. We want a ratio right there that is so delicately refined that all those four values can be at their maximum. Because when they're at their maximum, that means evolution is at its maximum. So we're looking for that. Like the golden ratio is kind of like a foundational structure. You know, it's a perfect ratio, but what happens is, remember, the river needs to meander. It can't just go straight. So if you take the golden ratio like a line, and you take any sequence, I found out from my son who's a mathematician, absolutely any sequence of numbers that are in a relationship to each other, you always get a meandering line that keeps getting closer, 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 closer to the golden ratio. So as human beings, this is like, we're looking at these very fundamental laws of nature here. This is the way the mother of the universe has structured Earth, right? That it's the nature of Earth that we're never going to hit right on the golden ratio. So the relationship between this flowing evolutionary value and this orderly, loving order is always going to kind of go like this. It's going to be kind of like weaving back and forth between them, hopefully getting closer and closer to the perfect ratio that's going to allow for maximum speed of evolution. So I'm asking, is there a way to speed it up? Is there a way to refine it? Now we're looking at the physiological level, because this isn't just about moving consciousness. This is about moving the tissues of the body. And what we have at the tissue level, again, more of this really nice, rich information coming into the physiology, big, nice downloads. Sometimes I've talked about downloads coming in the head, but I'm telling you tonight, they seem to all be coming up through the earth into our physiologies. And what it means is that we have some support, because this is about the body. This is about the earth, about the rocks and the waters and stuff. The relationship between the waters of the body and the minerals of the body. And there is this, as I've mentioned on many previous webinars, this universal language of perception and experience by which we, in our conscious mind, the consciousness interacts with the waters and with the minerals. So right there, we're moving into this molecular, atomic level of the physiology where we see the relationships between them. They help each other. The minerals produce the physical structure in which the waters flow. The waters refine the physical structure. They, like in the digestion, for example, eating. And they refine, they break down the little pieces of the food till it becomes so fine. And that those fine little structures, there's a kind of a plasma through the physiology. Plasma. That is the level where the intelligence is coming in. where the light of being, where the download of information is speaking to the physiology, is at the plasma level of the physiology, upgrading and enlivening the health of the waters in the body, so that the interaction, the relationship of these members of our inside tribe, the waters and the minerals, that communication is of maximum value, that relationship is maximally symbiotic in order for hyper health, super health, super, hyper. I'm just watching the way in which the waters are transforming, the plasma and the physiology is transforming, and how its relationship with the structuring elements, the minerals. So what I'm feeling, remember I said the universal language of perception and experience. The waters can speak to the minerals and vice versa through feeling. And also this, the communication that takes place at this level of the physiology also affects like the gut bacteria, all the bacteria in the body. They also need minerals and stuff, right? They also need our minerals. We're creating this beautiful environment for this beautiful force of life in us to exist and be exquisite and to be profound and to be intelligent and to support optimal health in the physiology. So this upgrade is not just for you, but it's also for your gut bacteria. It's also for all the living force in the body, all the cells in the body. What's happening is this, it's like pure life force. And sometimes we can think of that as like chi or prana, but what in this context that I brought up, the prana is this point, is the point of flow. The prana is the flow. It is the flow. So that's the flow. Thank you. Okay. I see what's happening. I see what's happening. Very, very fine level of the nadis and the physiology. That means little, tiny, microscopic, submicroscopic levels of channels where energy, where prana flows in the body, restructuring. Thank you. The blueprints from the cosmic information coming in are showing how to restructure these nadis in the physiology that are at a very fine level. We're looking at nadis that are at like an atomic and molecular level in the physiology to be shaped in such a way as to support maximum health of the waters of the body, maximum health. That means to honor the meandering nature, because what we know about water, just in this little part of a YouTube video they watched about, famous scientists of the last century who are studying water, was that water, when it's maximally healthy, flows in a double helix shape like the DNA. See, it ties back to the telomeres. It ties back to the health of the DNA. Oh, so interesting. These water scientist guys figured out if they shaped rivers in a very natural way with, more meandering and so forth, and they were talking about, building up fords at different points in the rivers and so forth, that the water would be really healthy and it would cycle, it would twist. And it would also create little areas where the minerals could be crushed down, and the fish, there'd be little dips in the base of the bottom bed of the river where a fish could find quiet space and so forth. But what I'm seeing is that the shape of our DNA, which is a double helix, at that molecular level, is like making the banks of the river on the inside instead of on the edges. Because the double helix DNA is in the center, that as the way the waters move around the DNA is important for the life force in the waters. Well, that's so interesting. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being a force of intelligence. We're all this force of intelligence. The waters interacting with the DNA in a specific way to support the health of the telomeres, the health of the whole DNA and the telomeres. And now I'm asking about the energy medicine that will come in and rebuild at the ends, because really most chronic illnesses, unless you're born with something, and I think we do need to go back and actually talk a little bit more about past lives, because that's where we come into our past incarnations, effects of being born with a particular problem. But most chronic illnesses evolve somewhere later. If we have the lifespan, they evolve somewhere throughout the life. At some point people can get different illnesses, arthritis or diabetes or some heart disease or whatever. And that really is the byproduct of aging, ultimately. Yes, and aging. Yes, I've been doing a lot of healings. I got a question saying, have you been doing a lot of healings? Yeah, you missed some. You have to catch them later. Anyway. So we're going through this tying everything together, which is the relationship between any karma, any little package of karma that we brought in this lifetime that gives rise to any kind of specific illnesses that come up in the future, the chronic illnesses. And the package comes from the past experience. And the past experience influences it feeling. It influences at the feeling level. And the feeling level is the level where the waters of the plasma of the physiology, which are all in and through and around our cells and inside the cells, and the DNA, and how the health of the plasma, the health of the feeling in the physiology. So that is the level from the plasma of the physiology, clearing trauma, fear, impressions, a variety of discordant feelings, not so many. What I'm seeing is as this fear and impressions and trauma, like the sort of the subtle structure of trauma is clearing from the plasma of the physiology, that is revealing at a denser level of the physiology, more of a tissue level of the physiology, cellular and tissue level, tissue and organ level. That's where a further healing or clearing is taking place, which is releasing from the system, is loosening up and dissolving out of the system more impressions, more blockages to the flow of awareness. So like I call them sometimes 3 M's, morphic fields, morphic resonances. Like morphic resonance is like a lot of noise, so it kind of blocks your ability to hear clearly. If there's too much loud noise, you can't hear what somebody's whispering to you. Subtle metamorphic fields. Ooh, and I got a big thumbs up, a big flag up on the subtle metamorphic fields. So very, very subtle material in the tissues of the body, in the various organs of the body. So what this means is that the healing that's been taking place at a DNA level through this live webinar is now working its way into the denser levels of the physical body, more to the tissue level so it can start expressing. And that's the level where the work of like the causal and astral and emotional bodies comes more into play. And I'm seeing that kind of awareness, the awareness is moving into this area here in the physiologies, because this is where the laws of nature start to become expressed, where they start to show themselves. You could say it's the symptoms of the laws of nature. If you've got laws of nature down at this level, then we've got the effects of the laws of nature here more up in this denser level, the physiology. And so causal body, here's the thing. The causal body is your go-to area for producing specific effects that will manifest at a material level of the physiology. So we have to be on really good terms with the causal body. That's why creating the resonations at the deeper levels are necessary first, because it's not enough to go into the causal body. Also, a lot of times karma is stored. Past life karma likes to store at the causal body level. So you can't just go in and go, grab that karma and throw it out of there. It doesn't work like that. The causal body has to be kind of finessed into functioning at its peak of health. That's what we needed, was a template for health of the causal body. Oh, because the causal body, like, it's kind of like, sometimes it reminds me of like your liver or something, because the liver is just such an important organ and it does so many useful things. It's such a basic workforce. It has like multiple purposes. And so, of course, lots of parts of the body do. Or the hands or something. We do so much with our hands, right? So the hands are like the way, that's the point where we really interface. We really start to interface with our world, is with our hands, and in a way kind of our feet too, hands and feet. So the causal body is kind of like that, because it's got these layers, like multiple fingers, multiple layers. And what I'm seeing is a very nice refinement of the causal body taking place for everybody in the webinar. And it's interestingly coming into this physiology. And like I said, I get to be the mirror or reflection of the work that's being done by your own divine nature through your own physiology. But through this physiology, it's looking like a kind of a lovely, very cool white color. Cool white, almost a bluish white color is present, and it's a very clean, it feels so clean. It smells clean. It is like cosmic cleanser. It's a very clean and very, I'm looking to how much it looks like it's addressing the it's in layers. The causal body's in layers, and the inner is the most delicate or most refined, least manifest, and the outer layers or denser. It's more in the outer layers of the causal body, like the outer 3 layers of the causal body have this whitish, very pristine light shining in them. It is the light of awareness has taken that shape. And that's what awareness does in the causal bodies. It takes shapes. Awareness becomes the shape of golden soma or some other light medicine, or takes on the shape of the form that one wants to create. But this shape is the shape of simple, pure, very refined. Aha. What it's doing, okay, this is what it's doing. Causal body is where the karma is. So the karma is what causes the evolutionary path to stray from that ideal ratio, the ideal ratio. So what this energy is doing in the causal body is it's giving us a sort of speeded up effect of being able to come into a perfect ratio you have to have the wave. We have to have the wave. We have to have the back and forth flow from the various structures of creation. Otherwise, life is not evolutionary and life is not interesting. But this light energy coming into the causal body is bringing us into the heart, much more to the heart of the ratio, so that everybody can function in a balanced way in their life between those elements that are highly evolutionary and those elements that keep everything in order. And it's going back through time to childhood. And it's helping to balance out those moments, the traumatic, not just in this incarnation, but in previous structures, in previous forms, balance out, particularly any moments where it became, we were more on the chaos side and experiencing trauma, out of control, oh my God, what's happening to me, versus times when life is so orderly, it becomes almost depressing. Because the evolution isn't there. I'm watching how it's interfacing, it's speaking. You know, every structure that consciousness produces, it both communicates internally and it also communicates externally. So we're communicating to the whole creation. The reality that evolution can go into this very, very fine, very healthy waters flow, supporting very, very fast progress. And that means physical progress, because everything that we're doing on the level of pure being and prana and order and a soft soma-like mix of that's loving, compassionate, empathetic, all that can stabilize at such a fine level that it allows for the laws of nature of this range or this realm of manifested reality to be softer, to be sweeter, to be in closer communication with those structures of creation which are extremely loving, extremely gentle. They're aspects of self, but they also, from our level of our individuality, they exist as life force. Just like I'm sitting over here and you're sitting over there and we're existing physically separate from each other. So there are locations in creation where the beings in that creation are so soft. They are so exquisitely adorable. And it's kind of like when a school over in Japan and a school in the US become sister cities, sister schools, and they exchange students and like that. It's like that. And that means a restructuring at the spirit level of the physiology, where all these forms are together, right? Where you are all of them. You are all the beings in all these various realms of creation. And you are also human being in human being realm of creation. We're opening channels of communication, the spirit level. So we have our inside tribe just got bigger. Our ability, and this because we've been located, and I didn't go into a lot of detail with that, but we located previously into this place where all the tribes are unified. What the Oseti camp did was they established this space. They asked the Mother of Creation, please, to help. And they established this beautiful space where all the tribes can come together. And because it exists, we can go. And it's a place where sacred prayer is honored. And it is one of the sacred prayer becomes the unifying principle. It becomes the language that's spoken in that space. And of course, Earth is there. Our beautiful Earth is there, and all our planets, all the stars in creation, but also many layers of beings in creation, which, as I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, have not been identified by modern science. All are there. And I'll tell you, Earth being this big, laboratory, there's some roughinesses, there's some rough edges here that we don't see in other locations. And so we can enjoy the blessings by having that more open flow of communication. I think we're coming to the end of our webinar. I'd like to kind of wrap things up. I think tomorrow we need to look more at the principle of sacred prayer and how we can sort of integrate the understanding of what is that exactly and how do we use our consciousness to engage in that way. I know a lot of you are already experts, but it still would be good to go in and really look in detail at the mechanics of that process, because I think it's important to understand that it's by harnessing these finer, more fundamental levels of the healing potential of physiology that the effects can take place at the physiological level. May everybody who's with me tonight enjoy the upgrade and the healing of your DNA, the healing of the telomeres on your DNA, the establishment of the blueprints that will help the waters of the body maintain optimal health, and the beautiful inner communication. Oh, you guys have been enjoying it so much this week. I brought this stone with me because I went to the Gem and Mineral Show about a month and a half ago. And since then, I have been learning a lot about the rocks. You can see this one has inside. Do you see how inside? It's very interesting. It's an interesting one. Anyway, I brought it to show you. But the point is that opening this communication, it may seem like kind of abstract and subtle, and maybe like we don't get how this actually applies to chronic disease. But what I'm saying is that opening the flow of communication deep, deep inside the body at a mineralogical level of the physiology is a fundamental player in being able to maintain optimal health and really learn to restructure reality from the mineral level on out, right? Because this is the beginnings of alchemy, basically, alchemy of consciousness. Because ultimately, what's the difference between someone who thinks I'd like an apple and someone who puts out their hand, apple goes whoop, and it just appears? Or, these great, wonderful yogis from Autobiography of a Yogi, where the guy who dives down into the pond and he comes out with money, right? The police are like, where do you keep getting all this money? He goes, I'll show you. And he goes to the pond full of crocodiles. He goes, down there. And they're like, what? And he dives into the pond with all the crocodiles. He comes out. The difference is mastering that mineralogical level of creation, because everything with structure is made of minerals. Everything is made of carbon and potassium and magnesium and oxygen and hydrogen and all this stuff. So what we did today, that was the biggest thing that we did today. It was kind of subtle, but I'm telling you so that you know what you're taking away is we opened up a level of very, very profound communication in the being with the mineralogical level of creation. So that just like the digestive mastery exercise opens up, and that, by the way, is a freebie on my website, just kind of putting that plug out there, opens up the channel of communication between you and your gut bacteria, and how many benefits come from that. Now we're at a finer level, and we're opening up this communication to the mineralogical level of the physiology. If I can figure out a way to make it a freebie on my website, I will. Oh, there's another question. So one question coming in, and I know we're just a few minutes over, but it's a quick question. And I hope the answer's quick. We'll see. If it's not, I will finish the answer tomorrow. But the deepest refinement of personality and character is from this area only? No, 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 no. Deepest refinement of personality and character is from even deeper level of being, even deeper. The deepest refinement of personality and character is from the deepest level, from the celestial level. But great refinement of personality and character comes at this mineralogical level. So thank you. Yeah, beautiful question. Thank you, everyone, for being with me tonight. It's been a very interesting journey. Everybody, and I mean everybody, even people, if you're just guests at somebody's house, or, big shout out to the big group that's out there tonight, and one of my friends who's having a birthday. And everybody will receive recordings of both tonight's webinar and tomorrow's webinar. And tomorrow's webinar expands upon tonight's webinar. So it should be interesting to see what comes out of that. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out. All right, everyone. Thank you. We'll see you again soon.